Have you ever paused and wondered what's truly shaping your life? Not your job, not your past, not even your talents, but something quieter, something that lives inside your own head. The thoughts you allow to repeat, the words you whisper to yourself in silence, those invisible scripts write the future you're walking into. I've met people who had nothing, no money, no education, no connections, but their minds were like gardens filled with hope, belief, and grit. And then I've seen others who had it all, yet were prisoners of their own thinking, trapped in doubts and fears they rehearsed every single day. So here's a question worth asking. What kind of story are you telling yourself? About yourself? Because long before we act, long before we speak, long before the world ever labels us successful or failure, we've already decided who we are in the quiet corners of our own minds. That voice inside? It's either building you or burying you. And the tragedy is, most people don't even realize they're having that conversation. They walk through life reacting to outcomes they unknowingly authored in their own heads. Steve Harvey once said, "We become what we think." And it's not just a catchy phrase, it's a mirror. If your thoughts were visible, what would they reveal? Are they building cathedrals of courage or prisons of fear? Are they lifting you out of your past or chaining you tighter to it? You don't have to shout it out loud. But deep down, you know, some of your dreams have been quietly killed by the thoughts you believed. Not by failure, not by others, but by your own inner narrative saying, you're not enough. And the longer that voice lingers, the further you drift from the person you were meant to become. This isn't about fake positivity. It's about taking the wheel back from that inner critic who's been driving your life off course. Because thoughts aren't harmless. They're seeds. And whether they grow into weeds or wonders, that's on you. So before we go any further, pause right here. Breathe. Look inward. Ask yourself, what's the loudest thought in my mind today? Because that thought might just be the blueprint of your tomorrow. Every skyscraper you've ever seen started the same way, as a line on paper, drawn by someone who believed it could exist. Long before the first brick was laid, the building was real in someone's mind. That's how powerful belief is. That's how real thoughts become. Your life works exactly the same way. Long before the world sees your success or failure, your mind has already been busy drawing blueprints, some of dreams, some of disasters. The question is, which ones are you building on? I've met people who kept replaying stories of shame, regret, and betrayal. They wore those thoughts like clothes, and after a while, the world began to treat them exactly as they saw themselves. Broken, defeated, invisible. Not because they were cursed, but because they unknowingly built a life from the bricks of their pain. And then there were others, quiet, ordinary souls with nothing special on paper, who carried thoughts that glowed in the dark. They told themselves, this won't be my ending. They believed that failure was a teacher, not a tombstone. And that belief became the foundation of something new. Because here's the truth, the mind is not neutral. It doesn't just observe the world, it shapes it. Every thought you hold is either designing your dream or digging your grave. Slowly, silently, relentlessly. You think in secret, and it comes to pass. Every whisper you tell yourself becomes a building block. So if you've been living in constant chaos, maybe it's time to stop blaming the storm and start checking your architect. Thoughts aren't decorations. They're blueprints. You don't need perfect circumstances. You need a vision that's louder than your fear. A belief that refuses to shrink. A thought that dares to rise. And once that thought takes root, watch how your world bends around it. People will call it luck, but you'll know. It started long ago, in a quiet moment, when you finally chose to think differently. There's a voice you hear more than any other voice in your life. You hear it before you sleep, when you wake, when you're alone, when no one is watching. And the truth is, that voice, your own, is the one shaping you more than any advice, any podcast, or any book ever could. People talk about self-sabotage like it's some mysterious curse. It's not. It's a whisper. It's the quiet sentence that plays in your head right before you step up, right before you try again, right before you reach out. It says, who do you think you are? It says, you're too late, too broken, too small. And if you believe it long enough, it becomes the truth, not because it's true, but because you gave it permission to be. I've seen brilliant people shrink themselves because of that voice. I've seen kind hearts turn cold. I've seen leaders crumble before they even start, not because the world defeated them, but because they lost the battle within. The voice inside them was louder than the applause outside. But here's what I've learned the hard way. That voice is not fixed. It's trained. And just as it was trained to criticize, it can be retrained to build. It can go from I can't to what if I could. From I always mess up to I've learned something this time. It can go from a judge to a coach, from a wound to a weapon. You don't have to silence it. You have to teach it a new language. You have to feed it with thoughts that lift, stretch, and honor who you're becoming, not just who you've been. Because that voice, it becomes your lens. And the lens you look through is the life you end up living. No one hears it but you. But its echo reaches everything. Your relationships, your ambitions, your reactions, your willingness to try again. So if you're wondering why you're stuck in the same cycles, the same doubts, the same fears, start listening to the soundtrack you've been playing on repeat. You can change the world's opinion of you. But if your inner voice still whispers the same old lies, it won't matter. You'll walk like the person you believe you are. Change your tone. Change your story. Change your life. Belief doesn't fall from the sky. It's not some lightning strike of confidence or magic moment of clarity. Real belief, the kind that moves mountains, starts as a whisper, a thought, one quiet sentence you repeat to yourself until it digs its roots deep into your soul and says, I can do this. You don't wake up one day suddenly fearless. What really happens is, you wake up one day no longer willing to keep doubting yourself. That shift, it doesn't begin in your actions. It begins in your thinking. The way you think creates your limits, or it removes them. I've watched people talk themselves out of opportunities before they even tried. Not because they weren't ready, but because deep down, they couldn't see themselves winning. They couldn't picture themselves in that role, in that room, in that future. And if your mind can't imagine it, your feet won't walk toward it. Everything you've ever done, every brave moment, every risk, every dream, you did it because at some point, even if just for a second, you believed you could. Maybe it was shaky, maybe it was small, but it was there. That's the seed that grows into the life you haven't lived yet. But here's the thing, belief doesn't scream. It doesn't beg. It's not loud. Doubt is loud. Fear is loud. But belief waits for you to choose it. Every single day, through the fog, through the silence, through the parts of you that still remember failing. And the more you choose it, the louder it gets. That's the blueprint. That's the secret. Not luck, not talent, not a perfect plan. Just a quiet, consistent thought that says, why not me? And every time you feed it, you give yourself permission to step into a life that once felt too big. And the truth is, your life will always expand or contract to the size of your belief. You'll only chase the love you think you deserve. You'll only ask for the opportunities you believe you're worthy of. And you'll only rise to the level your thoughts allow you to imagine. So if your world feels small, if your life feels stuck, don't look outside. Look within. That belief, that thought, that is the ceiling. And the moment you change it, you start building something new. At first, it feels harmless. Just a single thought, a passing idea. I'm not good enough. You don't say it out loud. You don't write it down. You just think it. Then you think it again and again, until one day, it's not just a thought. It's a truth. That's how it begins. Thoughts are sticky. They cling to you. They sit with you at dinner, whisper to you in meetings, echo in the back of your head when you're trying to sleep. And the more they repeat, the more they start changing your actions, quietly, invisibly. You stop raising your hand. You don't apply for the job. You say I'm fine when you're not. You choose safety over growth. You settle. And you call it being realistic. But it was never realism. It was a belief born from a thought you didn't question soon enough. And that's the trap. We assume our thoughts are facts. But really, they're just visitors. Some are helpful. Some are poison. And the ones we entertain the longest are the ones that shape our routines, our identity, and eventually, our destiny. You think long enough like a failure, you start walking like one. You think like a victim, you speak like one. You think like you're small, you act like you don't matter. And little by little, you become what you never wanted, not because it was your fate, but because it was your pattern. But here's the gift, the pattern is breakable. You can choose a new thought, a thought that feels foreign at first, almost foolish. Like, maybe I deserve better. Maybe I'm stronger than I act. Maybe I was wrong about who I am. And that one thought? It won't change your life overnight, but it will open a door to a different action, a better habit, a stronger belief. And if you keep walking through that door again and again, you'll one day look back and realize. It all began with one small, dangerous, beautiful thought. That's why Steve Harvey said, we become what we think. Because the mind builds first. The world catches up later. You can have money in the bank and still live poor. You can drive a luxury car, wear designer clothes, sit in a corner office, and still carry a mindset so small, so scared, so limited that everything in your life feels like it's shrinking. That's what they don't tell you. Poverty isn't just about money. It's a way of thinking, a quiet belief that says, I don't deserve more. It's too late for me. People like me don't get far. You see, some of the most broke people I've ever met had the highest incomes, but they were starving in spirit, starving for purpose, starving for courage. Their decisions were driven by fear, not vision. Their days were spent protecting what they had, instead of building what they could become. Poverty of the mind is when you stop dreaming. It's when you settle because trying feels dangerous. It's when you think comfort is the same as peace, when in truth, it's just a cage padded in routine. And you know what's worse? It looks normal. It looks responsible. It looks safe. But deep down, you feel it. You've traded your potential for predictability, and it eats at you in the quiet moments. That whisper of a life unlived. That dull ache that says, there was more, but you chose less. So what does it mean to be rich in mind? It's not about ambition for the sake of status. It's about knowing you were built for more. It's about refusing to let fear write your story. It's about looking at a closed door and thinking, that's fine, I'll build another one. Rich thinking isn't loud. It doesn't need to flex. It builds. It dares. It asks better questions. It believes, even when there's no proof yet. Because it knows, your reality always rises to meet your thoughts. Steve Harvey wasn't talking about income when he said, we become what we think. He was talking about a deeper kind of poverty, the kind that leaves you alive, but not really living. And that, my friend, is the real danger. We change jobs. We move cities. We cut ties. We rearrange the outside, hoping it will fix the inside. But no matter how many rooms you redecorate, if the light bulb in your mind stays dim, you'll keep seeing shadows where there could be sun. That's the truth most people run from. Changing your life isn't about flipping everything around you. It's about flipping the script within you. I've seen people leave relationships only to find the same pain in the next one. I've seen folks quit jobs they hate and still carry the same exhaustion into the new gig. Why? Because nothing truly changes until your thinking does. Your thoughts are the lens. And if the lens is cracked, blaming, fearful, always waiting for the worst, then even the best view will feel broken. People say, I just need a fresh start. And yes, sometimes you do. But most times, what you really need is a fresh perspective. Because here's what happens. The moment you change the way you think, you change what you notice. You see opportunity where before you only saw obstacles. You hear encouragement where before you only heard doubt. You speak to yourself differently. You show up differently. And when you do that long enough, your world starts responding. That's the shift. That's the work no one else can do for you. Not your mentor, not your spouse, not your boss. Only you can sit with your thoughts and ask, is this helping me grow or holding me small? Does this mindset protect me or does it imprison me? When you choose better thoughts, you start building a better life. And no, it's not instant. It's not flashy, but it's real. It's powerful, and it's yours. As Steve Harvey said, we become what we think. So if you want to become someone who lives with purpose, strength, and peace, start thinking like them before you become them. There's something quiet, yet powerful, about a person who thinks differently. They don't have to speak loudly. They don't need applause. They just walk into a room, and the atmosphere shifts. You've met someone like that before, haven't you? Someone whose calm gave you calm. Someone whose belief made you believe a little more. Someone who didn't fix your life, but somehow made it easier to breathe. That's the ripple effect of thought. Because when your thinking expands, so does your presence. You listen differently. You encourage gently. You challenge with kindness. And without even trying, you give others permission to rise. A parent who breaks the pattern of self-doubt doesn't just help themselves. They raise kids who walk taller. A teacher who believes in possibility doesn't just teach facts. They plant seeds of identity. A friend who chooses peace instead of drama offers a model of another way to live. And a stranger who smiles like they've made peace with life, that smile stays with you long after they're gone. See, we often think thoughts are private, silent, but they leak. They show up in the way we speak, the way we carry our shoulders, the way we look people in the eye. People don't just hear your words, they feel your mindset. And if your mindset is strong, open, compassionate, you give others a taste of what's possible for themselves. That's why the work you do in silence, the shifts, the healing, the unlearning, the forgiving, it's not just for you. It's for every person you'll ever hold, teach, love, or inspire, even if they never say thank you, even if they never know your name. So when Steve Harvey said, "We become what we think," he didn't just mean we create our own path. He meant we light a path others will walk after us. Let that sink in. Your thinking shapes your world and echoes into theirs. You don't need to wait for a new year. You don't need to hit rock bottom. You don't need the perfect plan or the right conditions. All you need is one new thought. That's where it begins. Just a shift. A whisper in your mind that says, maybe I don't have to keep thinking this way. Maybe there's more for me, and I don't have to earn it with pain. Maybe I've been wrong about what's possible. That's not weakness. That's not delusion. That's awakening. You've survived storms your younger self would have drowned in. You've carried weights no one saw. And yet, here you are, reading this. Still hungry. Still open. Still here. So let's not waste another moment asking, when will life get better? Let's ask, what if I start thinking better? What if you talk to yourself like someone worth hearing? What if you treated your thoughts like seeds, planting what you want to grow, not what you fear will come? Every life you admire, every person who glows with purpose, it all began with thought. A decision, a quiet defiance against the noise of limitation. Steve Harvey said it clearly. We become what we think, not what we hope, not what we wish for, but what we consistently tell ourselves when no one's watching. So today, let it be the beginning, not of a new to-do list, not of a dramatic change, but of a new mental home, one where belief lives, one where fear has no vote, one where you can sit with yourself and say, I am no longer my past. I am no longer waiting. I am becoming. And that becoming, it starts now, right here, in the silence between this word and your next thought. Thank you for being here. If this touched something in you, don't forget to like the video and subscribe. It helps us keep sharing what matters.